think we are live. Mic check. Mic is working. Screen is sharing. Bet. Yo. What up? This is Toby with O-Line Security. Welcome to Cyber Thursdays, everybody. Tonight we got a few things to talk about. The main topic for tonight is going to be Ansible. Ansible. If you're not familiar with what Ansible is, it is an automation tool that we can use to automate, right? We can use it to automate a lot of different tasks that we have going on in our environment. You can automate emails being sent out. You can automate updates being installed onto your systems, patches being deployed out to your systems. There are a bunch of different use cases when it comes to using Ansible. Hey, what's up, Bolu? What's going on? Hey, a good study hall session yesterday. Let me know if you all are doing any other study hall sessions throughout the week. I will do my best to try to join in with you guys. But definitely a good study hall session yesterday. I love the comprehension that I heard. So keep it up, y'all. Definitely keep it up. Now, before we get into the topic of tonight, right? Tonight is going to be all about Ansible. All right, before we get into that topic, a few things. We have a very popular course called Security Fundamentals. If you are Security Plus certified, if you're not Security Plus certified, if you're trying to get Security Plus certified, if you're trying to break into the field of IT, InfoSec, or cybersecurity, then you definitely want to go to olinesecurity.com and register for our Security Fundamentals course. We have a few people on the live right now who are part of that class. They're registered for the one coming up in February. Some of them just finished their class. It's a very dope course. It's not just about the Security Plus, though, right? It's not just about getting Security Plus certified. That is the icing on top. That class, that entire academy, 10-week academy, Monday through Thursday, 8:15 to 9:35 p.m., is really about getting you the hands-on skills that employers need. They are required to have in order to solve real-world problems. All right, so if you want to become hands-on, you want to gain the hands-on experience that employers are looking for, you want to give yourself leverage in this market when it comes to accepting an offer letter, then you need to go to olinesecurity.com and register for that academy ASAP. ASAP. It's not just about getting Security Plus certified. The most important part is about career development and helping you break into this field, right? And if you're already in the field, it's obviously going to help you get to higher levels, right? Promotions, different areas within the field. It's a very big field, right? We have risk management, we have vulnerabilities, we have networking, we have security assessments. There's so much. And then we have DevOps, right? That's what we're going to be doing today, DevOps. All right, that's all about Ansible. All right, so we got that out the way. We also have other courses, Splunk courses. I'm a Splunk consultant, Splunk engineer, Splunk architect. So I love Splunk. That's what I do every day. I'm a Splunker by heart, by way of Splunk. So we do have some Splunk engineering courses out there as well. All right, now Cyber Thursday today, Ansible. Let me go ahead and get this up. What we are going to be doing today is learning about an Ansible playbook, and we're going to knock out two birds with one stone because we're going to learn about Ansible and we're going to use Ansible to create or download and install Splunk, right? So we won't dive too much into Splunk, but we will use Ansible to download and install Splunk. Now, if you missed it, if you're not familiar with Ansible, it is an automation tool. This isn't Ansible right here on the screen that I have right here, right? I'm saving it. Just one second. If you're not familiar with Ansible, it is an automation tool. We use it to automate a variety of different tasks. It depends on what you have going on. It depends on what you're trying to do. You can automate things within your environment. What we're going to be using it for is to automate the downloading and installation of Splunk. You could have about 100 different workstations in your environment, whether it's Windows operating systems, whether they're Linux servers, no matter what the operating system is. Instead of you individually individually going to each and every single machine, logging into the machines, going to splunk.com, downloading the Splunk binary, installing Splunk, setting Splunk up, instead of you doing that for each and every single machine, you can do it from one machine with Ansible. So that's what we're going to learn about. All right, so we may run into issues. That's fine. That's normal. That's all a part of the process. So if we run into issues, I'm hoping we do. We're going to solve it together. If you all have any questions, please feel free to drop it on Discord. If you're part of the community, the O-Line community, I have my Discord up over here now. You can send it as a private message or you can put it in the Cyber Thursday channel. It doesn't matter. If you have a question on YouTube, feel free to drop it down. We will do our best to try to answer it. All right, so here I have an Ansible playbook right here. We're going to break this down, each and every single line inside of this, so we can understand what is going on. But this essentially is a YAML file. You can see the .yml right here. This is a YAML file. Ansible scripts or Ansible playbooks are all written in YAML. Okay, they're written in YAML. So that's what we have here. We're going to go ahead and start messing around with that. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and get this machine up and running first. All right, I'm going to go ahead and SSH into this machine. All right, cool. And I'm actually going to, well, we'll wait. We'll break the playbook down first. And then once we get halfway into the playbook, I'm going to start it. Because it probably will take about 5 minutes, hopefully less, for this entire playbook to execute. All right, so this is what an Ansible playbook looks like. We're going to start with the name. Obviously, this is the name of the playbook. You can name this value here anything you want. You can name it after your name. You can name it Mike. You can name it Toby. This playbook is essentially going to install and configure Splunk. We can, remember I mentioned we can target about 100 different hosts with this. Right now, we're only going to target one machine, right? Which is going to be our local host. We're going to target one machine to download and install Splunk, right? This entire playbook right here is going to target one machine. If you wanted to target more machines, you would just put that here, right? You would put that here. We can talk about how the host field works. You can definitely target as many machines as you want to. All right, we got a question. Let me see. This question says, what program are you using to create this YAML file? This is VS Code. I use VS Code to script out everything, whether it's YAML, Python, Java. It doesn't matter. I like VS Code. This is my buddy. You could Visual Studio Code, VS Code, same thing. That's a great question. All right, so where do we leave off at? Okay, all right. So we talked about the host field. This is the machine that we're targeting. Right now, we're just going to target our local host. This become field is not necessary. However, what become is doing, we say become yes, right? We want to become sudo. So this is going to run the playbook as sudo, right? You don't have to, if your playbook, right? Because there are different use case scenarios here. If your playbook doesn't need sudo to run, then obviously you would just take this out, right? You would just, my double click isn't working. You would just take that out, right? But I want to leave it there just in case we do run into a situation where we need sudo. Hey, what's up, Julio? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Let us know if you got any questions while we are doing our thing over here. So now, the main meats and potatoes of Ansible, right, are going to be the task, right? We have a bunch of different tasks. The task, these are the actions that Ansible is taking. Now, there are a bunch of different ways you can write out your Ansible playbook, y'all. This is just one way. This is a simple way so we can learn it, right? Essentially, you could break up your task into different files, right? You can break up these tasks into different files. I like to put them inside of different roles, but I don't want to complicate Ansible for this Cyber Thursday session, okay? I want to keep it very simple, so I have all of my tasks inside of one file. They're all inside of one file. In our DevSecOps course, we're breaking tasks up into roles. We're breaking tasks up outside of the main playbook because they're reusable, right? You're going to be reusing the task over and over and over. So when you're creating your Ansible playbooks, you don't want to type the same task, add Splunk user into each and every single playbook, right? You want it to be reusable, okay? But for the sake of this, we're going to have them all inside of one playbook because it's easier to read and it's easier to learn it like this. All right, so the main meats and potatoes are going to be these tasks. And notice the indents here, right? That's really key for Ansible. If your indentation is off, Ansible is going to complain and say, "Hey, what the heck is going on?" Right? Actually, let me just run this. I'm just gonna run this real quick. Give me 1 second. Sudo copy vagrant. What's the name of it? Splunk. Okay. Right. So down here, just uh, for situation awareness, down here is a terminal, and I'm controlling a virtual machine down here. So this is just the back end of that virtual machine. Up here is the actual playbook, the I mean, the entire program that we're looking at is Visual Studio Code. But one of the reasons that I'm obsessed with Visual Studio Code is because I have access to the terminal and I have access to files that I want to edit at the same time. So right now I'm just copying over this playbook that we're looking at right now. I'm copying it over to my virtual machine. It is here now. And got a question. Moreno says, what language are you using? So Ansible uses YAML. YAML, 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 YAML. So that's YAML. YAML, 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 YAML. YAML, 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 YAML. That's almost a tongue twister. All right, good question, man. Real quick, let me just vagrant this. All right. And I'm gonna go back over everything that I'm doing right now. I just want to run it. It'll make sense why I'm doing this right now. So that playbook is gonna run. So let's focus up here for now. All right, let's focus up here. Don't worry about what's going on at the bottom in the terminal. We are going to explain that. I'm just running it because it does take time to execute the task. All right, so the task, the main meats and potatoes, these are the actions, right? These are the actions that you want Ansible to take. And every single one of these tasks, we can execute it on the system, but we don't want to. We're lazy. We don't want to execute it on the system. We want Ansible to do it for us. We want Ansible to do it for us on all the hosts that we're targeting. But in this case, we're only targeting the local host. All right, cool. So the first task, and notice how each task has a name. You don't have to name it anything, right? You can remove this if you want to, but it just makes everybody's life easier if you name your task so we know what's going on. All right, so the first thing we're going to download Splunk. And that is, thank you, Stephanie, for subscribing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the first task we're going to do is download Splunk, right? And all this task is doing is running a command, right? We're using the command module. Ansible has a bunch of different modules, okay? I'll pull up the Ansible docs later, and I love Ansible documentation. There's not a lot of programs or vendors that make good docs. Ansible makes great documentation for the most part until you run into an issue. But so this module right here, we have different modules, right? You have this built-in unarchive. We'll talk about that. We have the user module here. We have a built-in file module. The first module that we're coming across is the command module. And all the command module is saying, hey, Ansible, we want you to run a command. We want you to go into the command line, into the command prompt, into the terminal, and we want you to run something. We want you to execute something. Well, what do we want it to execute? That's this entire command here, this wget command. If you're not familiar with wget, you can use this to download different files. So we're telling Ansible to download this entire Splunk binary, right? That's what this command module is doing. It's downloading that entire Splunk binary. If you went to splunk.com and you tried to download the binary, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing as you going to splunk.com and clicking download, but we're doing it from the command line, all right? And we're using wget to do that. And then wget is going to save it inside of this file, right? And we have an argument that Ansible is creating. You don't have to use this here, but for some reason I did, and I'm a nerd, so I just felt like doing it. But we're telling Ansible, hey, we want you to create this file and store the download, this binary, the Splunk binary. We want you to store it inside of this file in the temp directory, right? /temp splunk.tgz, right? Instead of it naming it, right? Because this name is pretty long, right? Instead of the computer naming it this entire name right here, we just wanted to name it splunk.tgz. So that's what this first task is doing. If you have any questions on this, let me know, right? Feel free to just drop all your questions in here. But the first task is saying, hey, download this file. So the next task, right? We downloaded the Splunk binary, all right? So now the next task, we're saying, hey, hey, Ansible, you downloaded our binary inside of this file, inside of this TGZ file right here, which is in the temp folder, the temp directory. Whoops. What we want you to do next is extract Splunk outside of that file, outside of that TGZ file, and we want you to store it in the opt directory, the OPT directory. So that's what this task is doing. It's taking Splunk, the Splunk binary, out of this source, and it's going to store it in this destination. And it's using the unarchive module to do this. In this first task, we were using the command module to download the Splunk binary. In this second task, we're using the unarchive module. Now, you could simply do something like this, and that would work. I personally don't like, well, I used to, and let me not say that, I used to like to do it like this because it was just quick and easy. But just to prevent issues, compatibility errors, any type of errors, I'm going to use the entire name, right? The full name. You know how you have a full name, then you have your nickname, then you have a first name. I'm going to use the full name of the module instead of just its nickname, right? Just because, right? You don't have to. Most times it works without the full name, but since I'm trying to teach you the right way to do it, I'm going to try to teach you the right way to do it. All right, so this is the full name of the module right here, which is just using the unarchive command, or this unarchive module. Now, what the unarchive module takes at bare minimum is a source field and a destination field. What do you want me to unarchive? Where do you want me to put it? We want you to unarchive this file that we just created, right? We created this file. We stored the Splunk binary inside of the splunk.tgz file. We want this command right here, this module, to unarchive that file and store it in this directory. And I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like on the back end. All right, let's just take it easy. Let's take it slow. Okay, and we're telling Ansible, hey, we want to do this on a remote source. We don't want to do it on this local machine. We want to do it on a remote source. This doesn't have to be there, honestly, because we are using a local machine, right? Our target is localhost, but I'll tell you why this is here later. It's actually for a playbook that I'm using for another environment that has a bunch of different hosts. But anyway, you don't need this here, right? However, if you were pushing this out, if you were using Ansible to push this out to multiple systems, then yeah, you would need this here, right? Just to tell Ansible, hey, I want you to do this on the remote targets that I am pushing out to. All right, cool. So those are the first two tasks we talked about. The first task is simply downloading Splunk with the command, this command module. The second task is using the unarchive module to unarchive this TGZ file and store it inside of the OPT directory, the opt directory. The next task is just as simple as the other task, right? It's using the user module. We're using the user module to do what? To add the Splunk user. This is why it's good to name your task. We're using the user module to add the Splunk user. This is the name of the user we want to create, right? We can name this, could be any user, right? We can name this, who's in here? We can use this, we can name it Moreno. We can name this Stephanie, whatever user we're trying to create. In our case, we are trying to create the Splunk user, right? Splunk recommends that you create a separate user account for Splunk to run off of. Okay. Question, is task 1 done on the local host? For some reason, I'm not seeing all the question, like the entire question. But yes, it is done on the local host, if that is your question. Can I stretch? Oh yeah, I can see it now. Is task 1 done on the local host? All of these tasks are going to be done on the local host. All of these tasks are going to be done on the local host. That's a great question. Why? Because we told Ansible, hey, our target is the local host. So every single one of these tasks that we're going to go through is being done on the local host. Let's say that since you went there, I'm going to go there too, right? So in Ansible, you're going to have an inventory file, inventory.txt file. And inside of this inventory.txt file, you're going to have a group of targets. So I'm just gonna put some random IP addresses here. You did it, IO. You should never ask me that. Web servers, database servers, to let's make this easy and just copy and paste this. That's not a real IP address. So this in Ansible, you're gonna have this inventory.txt file. All right. This is where you're gonna store your targets that you want Ansible to deploy to. So if we wanted Ansible to deploy to all of these web servers right here, instead of logging into the web service individually, what we would do is tell Ansible, hey, push to the web service. Or maybe we want to do something with the database servers. We would just tell Ansible, hey, instead of pushing to the host, to the web server host, push to the database server. And it will run everything in here against all of these IPs. Right. And you can specify a certain order, but by default, it won't be in any specific order. Okay. But to answer your question, yes, task one and all of the tasks are being done against localhost. Why? Because that's what we have specified as the host target right now is localhost. And localhost is going to be the system that Ansible is installed on, right? So whatever Ansible is installed on is going to be the local host. Hey, great question. Great question, y'all. And just keep them coming too if you have any. I love Ansible. This is something that I use literally every day. All right. Where do we stop? Okay, so this task, we're adding the Splunk user, and all of these are just modules. This is a module. Remember, this is a module. This is a module. Right now, we're using the user module to create a user called Splunk. How do we know it's a user called Splunk? Because that's the name that we put right here. You can set any name that you want right here. Okay, and Splunk's home directory is going to be opt Splunk, right? Users, if we were to create you an account, you would have a home directory. It would probably be something like /home IO, right? If I had a home directory, it'd be /home Toby. If Stephanie had a home directory, it'd be /home Stephanie. We're just telling Ansible, hey, make this their home directory. Okay. The next one, we did it again, right? We did it again. So this is redundant. So we don't really need this here, right? We don't really need this there because we're doing it here. All right. It's doing the same thing. We're setting the Splunk user home directory as opt Splunk, right? The name of the user and their home directory. I'm just catching this, right? We could remove this. I'm just going to leave it there. I guess this is just redundancy to make sure that the home directory is set to Splunk. And the next command or the next module is the file module. And remember, you don't really need this prefix Ansible built in. You could just do file, but it's best practice to use the full name instead of just using the nickname, right? So what we're doing here, what are we doing? Okay, we're setting ownership here. We're setting ownership. We're telling Ansible with this file module, we're saying, hey, we want Splunk to be the owner and the group of this opt directory. You know what? I can show you this stuff now. So right here, shown as Splunk, Splunk. This is what Ansible is doing in this task. Ansible is using the chown command, right? Chown, if you're not familiar with this Linux command, is changing ownership, is using the chown command to make Splunk the owner and the group. We're giving Splunk owner permissions and group permissions of this directory. But instead of us typing it into the terminal like we're doing now, we're telling Ansible to do it inside of this playbook. So that's what this task is doing. It's giving Splunk ownership and group permissions of this directory. and we're making it recursive, right? Capital R right here, recursive right here, same thing. Cool. Next task. Now, this was something that I had to do for my MacBook. I really don't need this task on Windows, but we'll go over the module just because. Now, line and file module. This file module and the line and file module, they're two different things. This file module, we're setting permissions with the file module. Line in file module, what we're doing here is adding a line to a file. Here is the line we are adding to a file, and I should be able to pull that up. Splunk. So this is the line that we're adding to the file. This is the file that we're adding it to. We're adding it to this splunk-launch.com file, right? And we should be able to see that. So if I do cat to open up the file, I could just copy this. And you can see that it's inside of the file. We didn't type it in. Ansible typed it in, right? We ran, if you missed it, we ran the playbook as we were going through it. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to run the playbook so we can actually see the changes. So this is what the line and file module is doing. Once again, you don't need this entire thing here. We just have it there because of best practice. But the line and file module is adding this line to this file. You can add anything, right? You can change this to whatever you want to. You can say O-line security is the greatest, right? And it will add that line to whatever file path you give it. And this create, what does this do? If the file doesn't exist, it's going to create it. So if this file didn't exist, this splunk-launch.com file, if it didn't exist, Ansible would just create it and then add the line. O-line security is the greatest in there. All right, cool. We're coming up to a module that we've seen before. This command module. What does the command module do? It's just running a command. It's literally doing this, sudo-h, whatever we put here. It's running that here. No, I don't want you to start it. Okay, cool. I don't want it to start. It's just running this shell command. That's all the command module is doing, is running a command from the terminal, from your command prompt. So, and what this is doing is very specific to Splunk, right? We're starting Splunk and we're accepting a license. This is a shortcut to accepting Splunk's license. We won't go into the details of this right now. If you do want to go into the details of Splunk, if Splunk is something that you want to learn, which I highly recommend it, especially if you're Security Plus certified, you're trying to get into cybersecurity, you're trying to get into a SOC role, I do recommend that you learn Splunk, the ins and outs of Splunk. We have a bunch of different Splunk courses. We have a Splunk engineer course. We have a Splunk fundamentals course. It's all there for you, right? We break down all the commands just like this in that course. So this module right here for Ansible is simply using the command module. This task here is stopping Splunk, right? So again, it's using another command, right? We're going to go ahead and use this command sudo-h-u Splunk to go ahead and stop Splunk, right? There's a reason we're stopping it. It's because we're trying to add some things to the configuration. So you want to stop it. Most services, you want to stop them before you make any changes. So we're saying, hey, Ansible, stop Splunk. And you all can kind of see the pattern. These are just different actions. Every block of task is a different action that's taking place. Every single action. And now you're starting to understand why it's good to name each block of tasks so you understand what's going on. Okay, so where do we leave off? All right. Okay, now file module again. File module again. We are changing ownership here, right? We're making sure that Splunk is the owner and has group permissions to this file. We're making sure Splunk is the owner and has group permissions to this file. Same thing that we did up here with this file module, right? With this task where we made sure that Splunk had ownership of this file here. Okay, it's the same thing that we're doing here, but what in addition, we're creating the file, because just in case the file doesn't exist, we're going to create it. Okay, we're creating it and making sure Splunk is the owner and has group permissions. It says, where do you get, question says, where do you get the different modules from? Love it. So let's go here. Ansible, let's pick a module. All you would have, so I don't know if they have a list of modules. Let's see. Oh, they do. So Ansible has pretty cool docs. Let me move this over here. I've never looked at this file, but let me just type file and let's see. Well, let's do line in file. Yeah, so I'm gonna post this in the descriptions here. Let me make a note of it. This is a list of all the modules in Ansible. This is a list of all the modules you can use. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of them, right? I probably only used about 20, if that. There are a bunch of different modules in here. I probably use more than 20. But if we picked one, right, if we go to Ansible line and file module, the docs are pretty straightforward. These are all the different parameters, which is they're the different options, right? These options that we have here. You see how we have this path? Well, that's blocking file. Let's go to a line in file. See how we have path and then line and then create? Ansible breaks that down here for you. See the create parameter? If specified, the file will be created if it doesn't already exist, right? They have a line parameter somewhere right here. And this is the line to insert / replace into the file, right? So let me, can you still see that? So here's the create module. Yeah, we can still see it. So this create parameter right here, that's what this guy is, right? This is the line and file module. This is the document right here. This entire document is for that line and file module, right? And this is telling you what the create parameter is doing. What this create parameter is doing, saying, hey, if specified, the file will be created if it does not exist. We have it set to yes. You can also have it set to true, right? By default, if you don't set this, it's set to false. So that means if this file doesn't exist, Ansible won't create it because you're not telling it to create it, which is why we had the create set to yes. But you could do true, you could do false. Okay, and if Ansible doesn't like true or false, it'll tell you, right? When you run the playbook, it'll tell you. Hey, great question, man. That's pretty dope. Okie dokie. Let's see. Can you all see this? If the screen is too small, let me see. How do I zoom in? There we go. I'll make that bigger just in case. All right. Where did we leave off? Where did we leave off? We left off at, okay, we were here, create the user-c.conf file. We were creating this file with the file module. We told, and then we can go ahead and look at this file module just so you can see what these parameters are doing. This is one of the reasons why I like Ansible docs. All right, let's look for the state parameter. Here it is. All right, state parameter right here says if absent, directories will be recursively deleted and files or symlinks will be unlinked, right? In case of a directory, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, it is going to create this for us, right? We can see if touch, we're using touch. We're using the state parameter inside of the file module, and we're specifically have touch set. What is it telling us that touch is doing? It's saying, hey, an empty file will be created if the file does not exist. So that means if this user-c.conf file, right, because that's the path that we set, if this file doesn't exist, touch, if we set the state to touch, it's going to create it for us. All right. So Ansible docs, really, 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 really dope. All right, and next task, we're using the block and file module. This is pretty cool if you have a few lines. If you have a few lines that you want to insert into a file, right? Here's that same userc.conf file. We created it right here. We created the userc.conf file right here with the file module and this state parameter. We're adding this block of text to that userc.conf file, right? And this probably doesn't exist anymore on the system because, yeah, it's not going to exist anymore because Splunk is going to delete it once you start it back up. But it's created. This is just the Splunk nerd in me is going off. This is what we use to set the admin account, right? In Splunk, this is just one way to set the admin account in Splunk. If you all took our Splunk engineer course, then you all already know this, right? But this block of line, right? We have line 1, line 2, line 3. Some of you are probably thinking, why don't you just use the line and file module, right? This module. That's not going to work when you have multiple lines to insert into a file. Line and file is best for one line to enter into a file. When you have multiple lines, it's best to use this block, right? You could get away with the line and file module if you had a for loop, but why would you want to do that, right? It's just best to use this block and file module. And this is adding this line, then this line, then this line to the file. Okay. The next one, we're going to make sure, once again, ownership, ownership, ownership. You can see, hey, thanks a lot, T Sizzle. Thanks for that comment. We definitely appreciate that. Something about Splunk, you probably seen this at least 3 times by now. Permissions, permissions, permissions. We're making sure Splunk is the owner. We're making sure the group is set to Splunk. Why? Because with Splunk, if it's not, things aren't going to work, right? Splunk needs everything in that directory, everything in ops Splunk to be owned by Splunk. The group must be set by Splunk. That is why you see this over and over and over in this file. Okay, and then finally, we're going to use the command again, the command module to do what? To start Splunk back up. Okay, I really don't want to go off in a tangent and explaining all these Splunk commands because I can really take another 20 minutes to do that. But we're just using this command module to start Splunk back up. And then finally, we're removing that TGZ file, that tar file that we created from this module, right? Remember when we created this TGZ file? Well, we don't need it anymore. So I'm using the file module to switch the state to absent. That means delete or remove it. It's gone. And we still have this up here. Let's see if they have absent set. Oh, yeah, that was this guy. That's why I said blah, 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 blah. I was like, hold on. I didn't have absent set the first time. But absent, this is going to delete the file or directory. Okay, instead of you doing remove temp splunk.tgz, you can tell Ansible to do it for you. Now that's the playbook, all right? That is the playbook. That's the essence of the playbook. We already ran it. Question: when you input a module to VS Code or any program, does it automatically put the path, owner, group, etc. there for you? You have to just know what to put. When you input a module to VS Code or any program, does it automatically put the path there for you? So if I'm reading this question correctly, and let me know if I'm wrong. If when you input the path, right? So are you referring to these paths that are being set or the ownership path? Like all of these we have to know, right? Ansible doesn't know anything if we don't know it. If I'm reading your question correctly, Ansible doesn't know anything if we don't know it. So I have to know the paths to set. If this is the wrong path, Ansible's going to say, hey, bro, that path doesn't exist. Are you sure you're telling me to do the right thing? Right? The ownership, okay, cool, perfect. Ownership and group, we have to know. Ansible will complain. Ansible's going to be like, hey, bro, that owner, this user that you want to be the owner is not a real user. This group that you want, like, even if I misspelled it, 2 Ks instead of 1, an extra N is going to say Oh, that wasn't it? All right. We got time, man. Let me know. 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 But we do, just to finish what I was saying, we do have to know what's being set here. But I think, but you said VS Code though. When you input a module to VS Code or any program, does it automatically? Are you talking about these modules right here that we're using, like the Ansible modules? Does it automatically put the path owner group? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, I think I get what you're saying. Does it automatically put this here for us? Is that what you're saying? Does it automatically, if we put this Ansible built-in file module, does Ansible automatically put the rest of this here for us? No. If that's what you're asking, no. You have to know the parameters to set, the field values that you want to put there. We have to know that. Ansible doesn't know it. VS Code doesn't know it. That would be dope though. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. But no, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. I wish it would have saved hours. All right, so we ran the playbook already ran. So let's go and look at the playbook real quick. I already ran the playbook while we were talking, while we went through this entire thing. Now, to run the playbook, you have to type Ansible playbook. That is the command to run any type of playbook. And then you have to give the name of the playbook. Now, timeout. That's only going to work if the playbook is running locally. If the playbook is not running locally, where'd it go? Okay. If the playbook is not running locally, you have to tell Ansible where the inventory file is. So in the real world, at work, even at home, if you're not running things locally, right? Because I have a bunch of different machines, this is how the command would look. This is how the entire command would look. You would do Ansible playbook, then you do -I. The -I is telling Ansible where all of your hosts are stored. All of your hosts are usually going to be stored in an inventory.txt file. Some people use the host.txt file. It doesn't really matter. You tell it honestly doesn't matter. Whatever file you're storing your host inside of, you have to tell Ansible where that file is. -I and then the name of the file. That way, when Ansible reads this host field right here, if this was set to web server, Ansible is going to look inside of the file you told it to look inside of. It's going to go over to your inventory.txt file to grab all of the web servers. The only reason this command right here, Ansible playbook, and just the name of the playbook, the only reason this is working is because it's running on the local host. That's the only reason. That is the only reason. And look, Ansible even said, hey, warning, warning, warning. No inventory was given. You did not give me an inventory.txt file. So I'm just going to run it on your local host, right? The list that you gave me, it doesn't exist. You didn't give me a list, and we didn't. We just said, hey, Ansible, use your Ansible playbook powers on this playbook. Ansible's like, hold up, wait a minute. Where's the inventory file? Okay, well, since you didn't give me an inventory file, I'm just going to run this playbook on your local host. And that's what we wanted to do. That's why we set local host here. But the way you would normally run it is like this. Okay, this is the normal way to run it. All right, but we ran it like this. All right, now back to our playbook. All right, so this is the command that we initiated to run Ansible, right? That playbook. We gave it the name of our playbook, which is Splunk base install.yaml. It doesn't matter what you name it. You can name it anything that you want. It really doesn't matter. Okay, and then it went through. Here's the name of the playbook, right? We can see that here. Now I'm going to be going up and down now. Okay, just follow me. I'm going to be going from the playbook up here to the playbook running down here in the terminal. Right, I'm going to be going up and down. So the first thing, install and configure Splunk, right? That's the name of the playbook. Cool. It's gathering information on our target. We set the target to localhost. Cool. Next task, download Splunk. That's this task. So it went to this URL right here to go and download Splunk. Sweet, right? They're telling us that we should have used the get URL module instead of using this command module to download it, which is true. It's best to use the get URL module to download files from the internet. I just didn't feel like doing it. This is quicker. Okay. But it worked, right? Next one, extract Splunk, right? What we're looking at down here is Ansible running the playbook. Okay. When you see changed, a yellow change means it actually implemented your action. It implemented your task. It changed your task. If this was red, then it failed, but it's yellow, which is good. Okay, I know sometimes yellow may come off as a warning, it may come off as a almost a failure, but no, that's good. We want to see change. All right, so extract Splunk. That's what it did here. It extracted Splunk into the op directory. This is the source that it extracted, and it extracted it here into the OPT directory. The next one, add Splunk user. All right, cool. It did it. How do we know that it did it? Because it said changed. It actually changed it. There was a change that happened. What was the change that happened? A new user was added. All right. Now set Splunk user home directory. That's the next module or the next task. Okay, that went through. Set Splunk ownership. That went through, right? The change happened. You Let's slow down. You see how this is green? That's because there was nothing to change here. It already was set. It says set Splunk user home directory. This was already set, right? Because it was set right here, right? We already set it right here, and then we had this extra task to do it again. Remember when I mentioned you don't need this here because it's already done. And Ansible is telling you the same thing. Hey, it's already done. And that is a cool thing about Ansible, y'all. It's a cool thing about Ansible. If something is already done, Ansible won't do it again. It won't do it again. If you wanted to install something and it's already there, it won't do it again. I don't know how to pronounce that I word. There's an I word for it. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not gonna even try to do it. But if it's already been done, it won't do it again. All right. Next, set Splunk ownership. That's this module, right? Or this task. This task right here, setting Splunk ownership. That change took effect. Add this line to that file. Here's this task. You see why naming the task is crucial, because if you were to run this playbook and you don't have any names in here, you're going to be confused as to what's going on, right? This won't be here. And the playbook isn't just for us. It's for everybody. Everybody's using the playbook. We're not creating it just for us. So you want everybody to understand what's going on. All right, next task, start Splunk and accept license. That happened. Then we stop Splunk. And we're not seeing the rest of this stuff. Maybe because it got truncated or something when we were talking through the playbook. But we should see it, but it's okay. Now, the question is, did it work? Because Splunk was not installed on here beforehand. And how do we know? Because look, all these changes that are taking effect. Splunk was not installed here. When it downloaded Splunk, that's a new change. When it extracted Splunk, that's a new change. When it added that user, this was a fresh box. I promise you, it was a fresh box. There was nothing installed on it. And Ansible is my witness, right? Because if there was Splunk on here, if any of these things were already here, you wouldn't see the yellow change. All right, so now the next question is, did it work? So let's go and check it out. Let me get my IP address of my box. So 192.168.56.105. I use Vagrant. It's a pretty cool tool. I use Vagrant to provision my virtual machines. So all we got to do is type this in, go to 8,000, and boom, here's Splunk. Splunk is installed. If we log in, Splunker, what was the password that we set for admin? It's in the Ansible file. The password was Splunker 2024, which is a bad password, by the way. And boom. And look, you don't get this message if Splunk was already installed and you logged into Splunk before. You don't get any of this, right? This is the first time that we're logging into it. And boom. Splunk is installed on here. You can check if it's working. You know, let me not do too much before I go into a Splunk tangent, but you can just check if it's working. Index, internal, boom. We got internal logs. Okay, Splunk is working. Right? Probably give this virtual machine some more resources. I thought I did, but obviously it's not enough. But that's fine. Who cares? We're gonna destroy the machine anyway. But that is Ansible, y'all. That is Ansible. It is really that simple. Obviously, you can complicate this a lot more, right? This is a very, very, very simple playbook. And that's because we're just learning about it. Most of my playbooks are not this simple, right? All of my tasks, you won't see my tasks in the files like this. They're going to be broken up into other files, especially start and stop Splunk, because I use those commands over and these tasks over and over and over and over again. I don't want to have to type it into each and every new playbook that I create, especially with the change in the ownership of Splunk. I don't want to have to type this out every single time I'm creating a new playbook. I'm going to put it in a different task and I'm going to call that task into my playbook. But it would look something like this, right? We would still do name, set Splunk ownership, but instead of me writing it over and over, I would do an import task, and then whatever the name of that task is, I would say chon.yaml. And instead of me writing this out, I could just do this in my playbook, and Ansible will go and look for this task wherever I saved it. Right? Saves a lot of time. It makes your task reusable, and that's actually one of the preferred ways. There's so many different ways to do it. But that's it, y'all. Let me check if there are any other questions. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. All right. Now these were all fire questions, by the way. These were dope, 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 dope. All right, that is it. Hey, hopefully you all enjoyed this as much as I did. Quick notes for some of our students that are in here. I know some of you have interviews tomorrow. Please, 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 if you can tonight, send me your elevator pitches. I'll be up a little bit longer tonight. So send me your elevator pitches. I really don't want you going to those interviews without having your elevator pitches vetted by us. We want to make sure that you're set up to win. Another thing that I want to talk about, you all, when you're applying to these jobs, when you're applying to roles, it's highly recommended not to lie on your resume, right? It's highly, highly, highly recommended not to lie on your resume for a number of reasons, right? Some people are over exaggerating on their resumes and they're applying to junior level roles, and an employer perspective, if you're applying to a junior level role that's looking for 0 to 2 or 0 to 3 years of experience, and you lied on your resume, you have about 7 years of experience, 8 years of experience, you're technically overqualified for that position, right? So from an employer perspective, I probably wouldn't recommend you for that position because you may not get the compensation that you're looking for with your 7 to 8 years of experience. So please try not to. Everybody's going to do what they want to do, right? You're going to do what you want to do. I'm not your dad. I'm not your parent. I'm just a friendly guy trying to steer you in the right direction. That's not something we recommend at O-Line Security, but you are setting yourself up that way, right? And the reason I'm bringing it up, because I was talking to somebody online. They're not an O-Line student. I was talking to somebody online and they were having issues getting just getting any contact, right? Getting any feedback from their resume, getting any interview set up. And when I looked at their resume and we talked about the years of experience, it was pretty easy to understand that they didn't have those years of experience. And I brought it up and I asked them, yeah, hey, you can tell me the truth. I'm not gonna just laugh at you or anything. And they told me the truth. And I told them that's probably why, right? It may not be the reason why, but it may be at the same time, right? You're overqualified for these positions. I understand why you're trying to line your resume. You want to give yourself a better opportunity, but you're really not giving yourself a better opportunity. And that can turn out to be bad in a number of ways, right? It can turn out to be bad in a number of ways. Let's say you get the job and you don't know what's going on, right? And then you get fired, or you get you get scared and then you just quit in fear of being fired. You don't want to put yourself in that predicament. So it's really, really, really not a good idea to lie on your resume. There are plenty of opportunities out there for entry level roles. You can ask our students; they're getting these entry level roles all the time. Okay, and let me not say all the time, right? I don't want to over exaggerate. They are consistently getting these entry level roles. It takes time, right? It is a journey. It is a marathon. Some people are able to get these within 2 weeks. Some people in a few days. Some people it takes months. That's okay. Right? Just try to do it the right way. Right? That's all I can recommend. That's what I recommended to him. That's what I want to recommend to everybody else. Don't put yourself in a position where you you're overqualified for something that you're really not overqualified for. It's a good position for you, but you just didn't know that beforehand. All right. So, hey, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Gaio. But our goal here at O-Line Security is to help people put themselves in the best position. All right. Our Security Fundamentals Academy is a great academy for anyone that is trying to get the real hands on technical experience that employers need. Okay. It's not a death by PowerPoint academy. We're not trying to lie on your resumes. We're not taking the exam for you. We're not doing any of that. You can ask any of our students. You can go look at the YouTube reviews that they're leaving. You can look at the Google reviews as well. It is from week 1 all the way to week 10. We are hands on keyboard, learning, troubleshooting, running into issues, and resolving problems that employers need. Right. And that's, if you want to put yourself in that position, you want to gain the confidence and understand why you're executing the commands, you're executing why you're running the tools and programs that you're running, and not just what you're doing, but you want to know why and how. Then I highly recommend that you go and register for that course. It's a lot of fun. I actually missed the last one. I really missed the last one that we just had. They ended about 2 weeks ago. The next one is going to start February 12th. Right, you can go and sign up. We do offer payment plans for those courses as well, but they do expire as we get to the first day of class. Okay, and keep in mind that it is first come first serve, and we only take 10 students per class. We are not trying to fill up the class with 11 or 20 students. And that is because everyone needs to be able to ask questions, and everyone needs to have the time to have their questions answered. So we keep those classes small on purpose. Other than that, if there are no other questions, y'all, I will see you next Thursday class. I will see you on Saturday for study hall. Please be there. Be ready to ask questions. Be ready to run into some issues so we can solve it. Everybody else, peace. Make sure you hold on to your loved ones. Give them fat kisses. Give them fat hugs. Make sure they know that you love them. That's the most important thing. It's more important than getting into the field, your family, your loved ones, and your friends. Other than that,